Hello, Javier, Noemi, and hello, everybody. Thanks for being here today. We are starting our 4 Refs Innovation Challenge and challenge webinar, sorry about that. And I would like to thank you all for being here. Of course, Javier, Noemi, the people from Social Lab, Edith, I know you are somewhere around there, Lina, Daniela, also from Nelly's, and to all the participants that are currently starting to connect. Thank you very much for being here. I would like also to start asking you, where are you connecting from? You can just type it down so we get an idea of the places. So I would like to start by introducing our guest speakers. So today we have Noemi Salantiu. Is that the right pronunciation, Noemi?
Yes.
I said Noemi, but the Spanish way, Noemi, I think so. Noemi Salantiu and Javier Guillot. So Noemi, she's a social entrepreneur living in Brussels. Since 2012, she's the co-founder of Edge Riders, a global community of change makers collaborating on an online platform. And in 2020, Noemi started a new company called Bean Life that produces high-quality whole protein foods based on the fermentation of local beans. So I guess we'll have Noemi elaborating on what she's up to right now. This is just the general introduction. Noemi, thanks a lot for being here once again.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have Javier Guillot. Javier is a public and social entrepreneur. He currently serves as environmental culture lead at the Department of Culture of Bogota in Colombia, and as an advisor for social and public innovation projects. He recently worked as director of the Colombian Public Innovation Team, DMP, and as a co-founder of Circula, a social enterprise that creates more engaging and consistent ways to deal responsibly with the challenge of waste. Javier, welcome.
Thank you very much, Lucas, for Revs, Nellis, and the entire Social Lab team for opening this space and having us here today.
So we are recording this webinar and we'll be posting it afterwards in Nelly's and Social Labs network. So everybody who wants to get a glimpse and to perhaps get to know the frequent asked questions and to get more information about the kind of solutions and projects that can apply to the 4Refs Innovation Challenge can effectively go through it and hopefully also get inspired by the story and experiences of Javier and Noemi in this case. So I will start by briefly, putting the context of what brings us here today. The 4Refs Innovation Challenge is an open call organized by Nelly together with Social Lab Colombia, which, as its name says, it gravitates around the 4Refs initiative, which is an initiative that was launched in May 2020 by Nelly's. So for those of you who are not familiar with Nelly's and 4Refs, Nelly's it is the acronym of Next Leaders Initiative for Sustainability, and it's a network / organization that was founded in Japan back in 2015, and that mainly aims to create a vibrant local to global, largely autonomous network of actors for a better future, mainly focused on the themes of sustainability and leadership. So it was established back in Japan in 2015, and now the network has members in 65 plus countries around the world. Basically, the Nelly's vision is to have one world in harmony, to work in order to be part of that collective construction. And its mission has to do with connecting, inspiring, and empowering new generations of sustainability leaders across the world. So yeah, we've been active since 2015. And in end of May of this year, we launched the 4Refs co-creative ecosystem. And these 4 refs co-creative ecosystem is one of the current flagship projects of Nelly's, and it's basically about providing a dynamic and interactive innovation platform around 4 of humanity's survival challenges. That's why it's called 4 refs, because the core assumption is that we need to transition through these 4 revolutions if we want to be able to survive as a species in this planet. Because yeah, I'm sure the planet will be able to, keep on with its cycle, and the ones that are at risk apart from life as we know it in this planet is, of course, as humans. And these 4 main survival challenges are framed within the theme of food agriculture. That's the first one. Within the theme of water, within the theme of resources and ecosystems, and within the theme of energy and climate change. Those are the 4 main challenges or revolutions that we are working on in the 4 refs platform and ecosystem. And basically what we've been doing right now during the months that have passed since we launched the whole initiative is to connect social innovators and entrepreneurs, as Noemi and Javier here, and sustainability practitioners on the 6 continents in order to explore and discover inspirational cases and share basically their daily life experiences and the challenges they are facing on a local level in a wide array of topics, and to present them to the corporations and public institutions that we've been working on during this year, mainly corporations and institutions from Japan. We've been working with 24 major Japanese corporations, several of them multinational companies with presence in different countries. And the whole concept, it's been based on this reverse mentoring sort of direction, where we really believe that social innovators and sustainability practitioners from urban sectors, rural sectors, working in education, in food, working in transportation, in different fields, they can really have something not only to share and somehow teach and show to these corporations, but also they can do it in a way in which can end up being inspiring, and hopefully also triggering those transition processes that some of these corporations and organizations are willing to start or continue in their organizations. So that's the main context of 4 refs and of Nelly's. And right now, I would like to show you briefly what is this whole challenge about before we get into the conversation today. So if perhaps Edith or Lina, if you can share the screen and show the 4 refs challenge platform, please. Is that visible already? Okay, coming. So while they show the screen, basically what we decided to do, and this is just one of the first, here it is, 4 refs Innovation Challenge, one of the first actions that are starting to pop up from the whole 4 refs ecosystem, is to create this open call for an innovation challenge. For those of you who are familiar with the entrepreneurial ecosystem, this is a format that's used in many spaces. Basically, a call for proposals and for projects that are aligned with what we're looking for. In the case of the 4 refs Innovation Challenge, we can scroll it down gradually, please. That would be useful. We're basically looking for solutions that are aiming to find innovative alternatives for any of the themes that could be related with the 4 refs innovation, with the 4 refs themes that I briefly mentioned. So we have food, agriculture, and protein supply. If we can briefly stop there, please, Lina. So things as what solutions or proposals are we looking for? The best and economically viable examples of regenerative agriculture, examples of technologies and ventures that produce edible protein from non-dairy, non-conventional sources, examples of new nutrition schemes, business, or initiatives to help feed the poorer populations in the world, in particular children. These are just some of the examples. And if you browse the platform, you can find some examples for each of the 4 things. We have the same for water tech, water management, resources, circular systems, ecosystem usage, and as well for the 4th axis, which is energy, climate change, and greenhouse gas. Of course, these are interconnected challenges. Somehow we talk about 4 independent challenges just for the matter of organization and having 4 clear angles. They are of course quite interconnected. And for the meantime, without further ado, I would like to start the conversation. For the meantime, I would like to invite you to check the website, the platform, to see in detail what kind of proposals are we looking for. We have the platform open till the 19th of November, so you still have plenty of time. And in that sense, you can take your time to fully apply and participate in this first challenge. And I say first because we are foreseeing several innovation challenges and other related activities that will be taking place. So thank you very much for that introduction, and let's get into our conversation today. So Javier and Noemi, I would like to start by asking you, I am aware that you are quite familiar with 4Revs. Noemi happens to be also a 4Revs researcher and project manager in Europe. And I would like to ask you, from your perspective, why is there an urgency to come up with solutions to the 4Revs related challenges? What if we don't manage to come up with proper solutions soon enough? And my question here definitely goes beyond this 4Revs innovation challenge. This is just one of the many challenges that we have to come up with solutions. In general terms, why is there a sense of urgency?
Okay, thank you for inviting me. Hello, everyone, from wherever you're tuning in. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. So why the urgency for these challenges? Well, the answer is not very difficult because we live in a world with a lot of paradoxes. Never before has humanity been so productive. Never before have we had this long lives, this much food, this much industrial scientific progress, right? And yet the planet where we live is very, very endangered. And we see this on a daily basis. If we happen to live by a seashore, we are running the constant risk of, hurricanes and natural disasters. If we live in a city, the air we breathe every day in our lives is a major, major damage to our health. The food we eat, we have to be careful about everything that we buy because chances are there's pesticides in it or there's anti-nutrients or things that our bodies have to fight against. And politically, the world is, I would say, going to, we see the rise of authoritarianism. Wherever you are in the world, you will see that you will need to fight for your democracies. So the world is not in a good state. We need these because these are the things that can make humanity survive. And these are the things that we would want for our children if we are to perpetuate ourselves, which is the basic need of humankind. So there is no other way. I think this is the simple answer. We are in a situation where we have to fight. And it's a pity that we are in this position.
Thank you, Noemi. What about you, Javier? What are your thoughts on that regards?
Good morning. Good morning again, Lucas, Noemi. And thanks a lot for those initial reflections, Noemi, which I fully agree with. I would like to emphasize perhaps how each of these challenges are interconnected is not a superficial statement. So I really believe that if we take the perspective of the history of our species on the biosphere, and we realize that our collective cultures. Human cultures have been evolving for the last, say, 40,000 to 60,000 years. And we have enjoyed a particularly stable set of conditions for the evolution of human culture on the planet during that amount of time. But now it's pretty clear for us, and it's clear in a way that was not clear or as clear 10 years ago. Nearly 10 years ago, we did not have the sort of clarity that we have today about how this very important set of equilibria for human development in all its forms, given that we evolved in this equilibria, it's all endangered. And it's especially because we've triggered a number of turning points that are usually fed by feedback loops. So you take something like the melting of ice in the Arctic, which is caused by, the air becomes a bit warmer because we've emitted greenhouse gases to the atmosphere with our industrial processes. And then the ice melts, but after the ice melts, so it reflects less sunlight. So the ocean gets warmer, melting even more ice. Just to give an example of several of these turning points and feedback loops that we're facing. And the evidence that we have is pretty clear now that the next decade, the next 10 years are absolutely critical to put a halt or radically deaccelerate and lower the probability of these feedback loops throwing the entire biosphere into reconfiguration. So it's all systemic challenges. The climate will be connected with the entire set of ecosystems around the Earth and the biodiversity that they hold. They will be connected with both land and water and air. We need to take the systems perspective, but I would underline that the urgency is related with the clarity that we now have about the future scenarios in the relative short term, so say for the next 100 years, unless we do some very radical things to change the ways in which we operate as humankind in the next 10 years at most.
Thank you, Javier. And connected to this sense of urgency that you are both highlighting, and that somehow is at the core of both Nelly's and 4Refs as an initiative that really aims to, solve some of our main survival challenges in the next decades, because we are talking about, the need to act and react very quickly. I would like you to share with us what has been your experience so far as either entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs with the kind of themes that are currently framed in the 4Refs Innovation Challenge. Have you always been in the entrepreneurial side of the processes? And what have you done so far to just start, sharing a bit of your background beyond the formal introduction that I did about you guys? Whoever feels like sharing a bit more can start.
Okay, so I remember when I was growing up and studying, I studied social sciences, and all I knew, I didn't know I was going to be an entrepreneur, of course, you never know. But I knew that I wanted to work with the meaning, to find something that I'm passionate about. And so then life takes you there because you were going in that direction. I'm a social entrepreneur, so I've always thought in terms of benefits to the whole, to the society, to the group, to the collective. And I've been lucky to find people to go with. I don't know how many of you watching are already established entrepreneurs or in the beginning of your careers. The team is the most important thing by far. Everybody knows it and says it for any project to survive. So that was key, finding the right people. The thing that I started, 2020 was probably the worst year in history to start a food business, and yet I've done it. I'm based in Brussels, and I've started this project to make plant-based protein food, but whole food, not the kind that you see that's processed, where you have soy extract, and it's not really nice to not know where the ingredients come from and how they're processed. So sometimes that can be even more damaging to the environment than your initial intention. It wasn't a good year to start, and yet I find that it's also necessary. So my mission is really to start talking to people who are willing to make a transition towards eating more healthily and more plant-based and reduce their animal protein. But I don't come from it with a radical viewpoint. I'm more of a flexitarian. So we eat meat, but it depends on where it comes from, of course, how close to you it is, how the animals were grown, and so on. And then we will have to see if it goes or not, but it comes from within, this idea of trying to make a change. It's not, I want to be an entrepreneur or I don't want to be an entrepreneur, or I have a great idea or not. I think it comes from what can I do to make a contribution of sorts. So it's entrepreneurship with a social, highly social flavor, even if you're running a for-profit business at the end of the day.
And could you share with us a little bit about the Edge Riders experience, about this platform that you co-founded, please?
Yes, Edge Riders, which is edgeriders.eu. For those of you who quickly want to have a look, it's really a discussion forum that's international. And it has been all of my formative years. It was the first non-job that I had. It was never a job, because when you're running your own project, it so happens that we set up a company that is not, that is more like a network-based company where people work on contracts and projects. It's a global community of over 6,000 people right now from all over the world who want to make a change. Some of them are activists, some of them are technologists, some of them are artists, researchers, but everybody thinks about what can I do for the common good. And so we build collaborative projects together, coordinating a lot online, but also meeting. We have also physical workshops in non-COVID times, of course. And we get funded by intergovernmental organizations and also private organizations, cities, so public authorities, European research money, basically looking at what communities out there are doing, especially people at the edge. This is the edge in Edge Riders, people at the margins, people who don't want to compromise and really want to make a change, whether it's in their daily work and jobs, whether it's passion projects, it doesn't matter. So everybody can come onto an open space and work with others for what they care about. And these were the past 9 years of my life. And it's going well. It's quite sustainable at this point because it is online. So it's very, very agile as a business.
Sounds like a very interesting and relevant platform. And I think that your experience in 2020 with Bean Life is quite motivating. You were able to put together and launch a new project in the midst of this very particular year. So I think that's also, quite telling.
Yes, having communities around is the best gift we can have, because that's how we learn as humans. We learn from each other. We learn from how other people do things. So that's the best school. It's really the school of life. It's something that you don't get to be taught in university, unfortunately. So yes.
What about you, Javier? What would you like to share with us in terms of your experience?
Great. That's so fantastic, Noemi, to hear that it's looking great and sustainable, especially these times. Look, just taking a step back and building on what Noemi has already mentioned, that being an entrepreneur isn't simply about creating new organizations, business or operation models. It's like a way of being, and a way of being together. So I would like to emphasize that, because I think there's a lot we can say about this way of being and what it implies in terms of its roots. I think the root of being an entrepreneur is understanding first what you value as an individual, as a group, as a team, as a network, the units that is creating something, and then proposing how that value can be materialized for others that may share it. That may share it in terms of having a need that can be covered by supplying that, or by actually realizing that the value is also shared in terms of perceiving it as a value too. I've been mostly an intrapreneur. So I've been an intrapreneur in academia, in NGOs, here in Latin America, in the public sector, both at the national and the local government levels, and also working as a social entrepreneur like Noemi. I am right now working as an entrepreneur for the local government in Bogota, where we are convinced about the value of reintegrating nature and culture, understanding that nature and culture are not separate, and we are creating a strategy together with a network of environmental activists, a diversity of environmental activists in the city, to try and weave culture together in a sense that transforms ways with which we relate with the environment here in Bogota, such as the way we understand and deal with waste, or with our food, or with the ways that we mobilize or transport ourselves in the city. But right before that, I was working to build an organization, Circula, you named it, that is directly thinking about the problem of trash, where trash is this thing that is also systemic. Like, I am fairly convinced each and every one of the problems posed by the 4Reps challenge, as are likely mostly any problem that we could frame right now in the social, economic, ecological, interconnected spheres, all of them are going to be systemic. So at Circula, we were looking at the problem of trash more generally, and understanding how we could engage and motivate people better to connect with local waste transformers, people that turn waste into nutrients for new processes. And we focused on used cooking oil. And I'm saying this in the past because the initiative, despite being alive, is now at a moment of reconfiguration. So I share that belief that the team is the most important component. I would say that always. I would say that the winning ideas for an innovation challenge like 4Reps, it's the people behind them, their visions, their principles, their ways of learning together and testing and evolving that really matter. Because in all likelihood, whatever ends up really working out there is something that is going to change a lot in time. So it's more about the people behind the entrepreneurial activities. And that's perhaps like a main message of the experience that I would like to bring on the table and invite people participating in the challenge to let themselves be known through their application, right? It's not just about the idea that you are describing, it's about you behind that idea. And this is something that I've learned repeatedly in many ways from entrepreneurs on all sides of the aisle. And that's why I prioritized it for this moment.
Thank you, Javier. And what you are just mentioning, it can be directly connected with one of the questions I had in mind. Both of you started highlighting some elements that you consider are crucial for, having successful, which can be a tricky word. I would like to get into it in a bit. Successful projects. And for instance, Noemi, you highlighted the importance of having the right people, having the right team. You mentioned the relevance of the community and a way of being together. That's the way Javier was describing, being an entrepreneur. And you have constantly highlighted this collectiveness sense of, being an entrepreneur. And building on that, I would like to ask you, based on your experience, of course, and on your journey so far, which is fortunately still alive, and from what I get, you are, of course, still coming up with new ideas and somehow reinventing what you've been doing so far. What elements are crucial in order to come up with truly innovative and sustainable solutions to challenges as the ones posed by the 4Reps Innovation Challenge? And perhaps thinking about early stages of implementation, what do you think makes a solution better than the average ones? What other elements would you highlight? And while you think,
Go.
I would like to invite all the people seeing this webinar to check once again the 4refs platform and to allow yourselves to apply. You can check that link here, and don't forget to check it out, go through it, and apply. Again, this is just one of the various channels you will have to be part of these solutions we are all looking for in different fields.
Just briefly, and to converse, Noemi, I would start saying something that's like a cliche already, especially in the social entrepreneurship field, I think, but which I fully agree with, which is show that you are that the initiative is enamored with the problem instead than with the idea. So show evidence that you are connected with the question that you are engaging with the problem, the way that you're framing it, the way that people that live that problem understand it. Maybe show how your understanding of that problem has changed in time, how the problem itself has changed in time. Because it's like when we get passionate about a single idea, like a single solution, there's a blockage to evolution and learning, right? So I would say that especially in early stages of implementation, the most inspiring initiatives that I've known are always initiatives that are open to learning and that are really, at the same time that they are developing a response, which is a word that I would prefer instead of solution. It's like responding, right? Respond. Instead of just being like focused on the response, it's like they're focused on, look, this is what we're addressing. This is what we're working on.
Yeah.
And this is the people that we're doing it with, right?
Yeah, I agree. Personally, I'm someone who believes ideas are quite cheap. And that's not because they're not all great. It's because they are all great that they don't mean so much. So what means more is the way you are going to put them in practice. So the connection, like Javier said, to the problem that you personally have. And then, of course, the story that you tell about yourself, and especially when you're pitching anything to the funders or to your clients, it's really what problem are you solving, and why the way you solve it is so important. And this is particularly relevant in food, where just making a new food, I mean, the world doesn't necessarily need a new food, but then if that food solves some other problem of food waste or ingredients that are not being repurposed for a circular economy, or people in need who actually need access to that particular food, then it's another story. So the innovation, for example, with my company is not the product itself, it's what it represents in the world, you know? So, and then of course, all business ideas can fail no matter how good they are, because there's at every step, there's failure points, and they only get bigger and bigger, I would say. So in the end, there's a bit of, a risk in anything that you begin. That's the default scenario. Be prepared for that.
And
yes.
Go ahead, Javier.
Yes. Oh, yes. Like, I fully agree. And also, this is part of my experience too. It is very likely that someone somewhere has already been exploring something similar to what you and your team are exploring. It's like we have this, sometimes like this, there's like a fetish with doing something like extremely innovative, like never seen before, but part of what I've realized, and again, it sounds obvious in retrospect, is that if you lower the volume to that ambition and you increase the volume to actually delivering, as Noemi is saying, so the idea is cheap, but maybe there are many others that have explored it in other contexts, then you can learn what happened, how did they take on it. If you show also evidence that you've done this research and learned that you're standing on the shoulders of others who've tried, then also like the likelihood of the initiative really getting traction is much higher.
And Noemi mentioned something that in several occasions I also hear it from the people from Social Lab, for instance, which is our partner organization, and they are pretty much all around Latin America, and they are all about creating innovation challenges. And some people are, kind of jealous, or sometimes too concerned about their ideas, and they feel that if they share it, somebody else is going to steal it. And even they sometimes they blame the people from, for instance, organizations such as Social Lab, because they think they're just gathering and stealing ideas from others, and they're gonna make some profit out of them. And in the end, as you were highlighting, Noemi, yeah, ideas, they even if they are really good ideas, they are cheap in terms of what you need to invest in order to develop an idea and come out with a really successful project. So in that order of ideas, I would also like to highlight potential applicants here to just share whatever you have right now without any concern of if somebody else is gonna do something with that, hopefully, and they're gonna take it to another place, and they're gonna take it to a next level with you, or building on what you shared with them, and how you inspired them. So I also think it is crucial to to keep this sort of collective and collaborative spirit quite present during these processes, because regardless if you're going to end up partnering with someone or not in your specific working team, we are constantly building on what others have done and what others are doing. And in that sense, I guess that having spaces to check other ideas and get inspired and get feedback is quite an opportunity in order to grow on our individual endeavors and on the ideas that we have. So yeah, please do share your ideas and just give it a shot. I mean, sometimes you might think that it's not there yet, and that you need more research, need more elements, more this and that, and you can just easily carry on waiting till the right time comes, and maybe when it comes, it's already too late for you. Maybe you don't have the energy, maybe the team that you once had, they already went elsewhere. So I also think it's a matter of just doing it. The power of just doing stuff. It's a very nice book from one of the pioneers of the transition towns movement, which was in fact an initiative that started in a small town in the UK, and now it's all over the world. And it's just communities getting together and doing things for their own well-being, and it started quite in a spontaneous way. So I think that's also important to keep in mind. If you have any questions during our session, please, or any comments, just share them on the chat. You can leave those questions and comments, and we'll be including them in our conversation. Okay, so we just had some elements highlighted by Javier and Noemi, and I was wondering if you have in mind any specific example or case that you think somehow relates to the 4Refs themes that we are dealing with here, and that you consider a successful case. And I also want to have a stop here and maybe elaborate on this notion of success, because of course there are many kind of mainstream acceptions of what success means. And I would like you to share with us your personal approach to this notion, and if you do have some examples, some concrete examples of successful cases, how come do you find them, or find that specific example success? Is it a matter of its potential impact, what it has achieved already, the social change theory behind it, the business model, communication strategy, whatever you feel kind of adds to this notion of success? That would be very handy.
Go for it, Noemi.
Oof, my head is like I'm a walking, I don't know, encyclopedia of cases, of course, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs. I don't know if the question is in terms of success or if it's just there's somebody out there doing a great job, because often if you measure success in terms of business, revenue and whatnot, you don't know what's behind any initiative that you see around you or online. Some are really struggling, but they are trying, and I think that's already a success. So my benchmark for success is really, the word is definitely netto better, because these initiatives exist, and if they exist still after a few years, that's already it's already a success. Surviving is a success in entrepreneurship in a way. If you're still around, it means you're doing something right. Maybe you don't have enough money, but if you're around, somebody likes you enough to keep you going and buy your product or join your campaign or whatever it is. In Belgium in particular, this is the quickest that I can come up with. And of course, if people have questions, I'd be more than happy to talk in more specific terms. Belgium is a country that produces beer, as you might have known or heard, a lot of it. And so there's a bunch of initiatives now coming up, especially because everybody's talking about circular economy and food waste. So how do we use the waste that is left behind after the production processes of beer, namely grains, and reintegrate them in other kinds of products? So there's all these beer food products, and God knows there's a lot of beer waste. So anyway, there's an environmental impact of just processing that waste, because it's not all being used at the moment anyway. So they have a great supply, an ingredient supply for example, crackers, that they incorporate waste food in them, but also they preserve the nutrients, because that beer waste has enough, proteins, fibers, whatnot, those grains. And also the food, the crackers are nicely packaged in biocompostable packaging, and it's very much locally made. So it ticks a lot of boxes in terms of circular economy, local food, healthy food, compostable packaging. So there's a lot of ingredients there that make it very nice initiatives. This is just an example. There's so many of them. But I'm a fair believer in circular economy and looking at a lot of surplus that is already there and working with it, as Javier probably is as well. Yeah, so business models, important.
What about you, Javier? Any
Yes.
specific example you would like to share with us?
Circular believers. First, a short reflection on the idea of success, because really, people, if we're looking forward to systemic or systems transformation, we need to begin by questioning what success means for us. Perhaps it's the ways that we've irreflexively, sort of learned what success should look like, that is driving a lot of the problems that we're witnessing. So I really like to say that success really looks like whoever wants to feel it. It may even be that failure is success. In a way, you can also look at it metaphorically. I've been a mountaineer for a good part of my life. A lot of people think that mountain climbing success looks like getting to a summit, but I think that it's a lot more about getting back alive to base camp and then back home, right? A lot of the accidents in mountain climbing happen after reaching the summit and coming down from it. And it's also not unheard of in the entrepreneurial field that there's a lot of initiatives that, get on a very fast track, earn traction, recognition, shoot up, become very ambitious very quickly, and then disintegrate also very quickly. So just as a reflection, and in terms of examples, look, I would love to share my screen. If you can put it up, please, Lina, to share three very different examples. The first is one that is far away and that I've never met the people behind it, but when I heard about it and read about it, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. It's called Green Wave. And what they do is that they do regenerative ocean farming. So they have a model in which seaweed and different types of sea life, like scallops, mussels, oysters, they are they are farmed, but in an ecosystem that requires zero inputs. So it produces food by actually producing the input for that food itself. And on top of that, it sequesters carbon and it helps to regenerate reefs. And what they do about it is that instead of just like, selling the things that you need to build a farm like this by yourself, they work like building networks. So they identify a region and they help to build the entire productive chain that helps the farmers that go for this model to actually find both their providers and their clients to make business happen and evolve in time. So really, really beautiful. One other example closer to home, and the people behind this I do know personally, it's called Awake Travel, awake.travel. So Awake starts operating in Colombia to bring ecotourism to an entirely new level in our country by empowering local communities that live in places with that are highly prioritized for conservation, and to engage directly with these communities so that they become the providers of high quality ecotourism services that do not only help to conserve the environment, but also help the communities that live there to flourish. And they've managed to survive through this crisis and are a certified B Corporation. Whoever is connected and hasn't heard about the B movement, it's also cordially invited to have a close look at that. And the third and last one, just to make an entirely different flavor, is it's this people. This is a grassroots organization of informal waste pickers in Bogota that work in the outskirts of the city to build a genuine circular economy model at their neighborhood level. And they are the only ones in the city of 8 million that have managed to build an organic waste processing plant together with a collecting route in their neighborhood that has become a model for the city to follow. And you can have a look at their website. It's not like they are connected with this flashy international network of support, but they do amazing work, and they are not worried about scale. So I'll stop sharing my screen there. They're not worried about scale as an end goal. I'm worried about this perpetual idea that we should be biggering the whole time. It's 10x. People, it's like you should be growing and growing and growing and going further in terms of size. And I sometimes think maybe we need to rethink scale. Maybe we can scale deep, maybe it's by understanding the complexities of local contexts and understanding that replication is not just like doing the same thing in other contexts, but like Green Wave does. It's about like adapting and responding to the diversities of different contexts. And I leave it with them at last, because I would love to see 4Revs winners that are not necessarily looking to build like, huge enterprises that,
the magic app.
Yeah, the magic app. It's all about apps, right? It's so frequently about apps that then deliver these huge margins. And even if you have like the social motive and you say, I will use these margins to reinvest for my social purpose, which can well be the case, it's like, think carefully about it. It might be that if we first focus on actually responding to the challenge instead of how to build something that can scale, we can find like the routing required to then really understand how to grow, or better still, how to evolve.
And I would like to add on what you were both mentioning and what you just highlighted, Javier, in terms of what are we understanding not only by success, but as the kind of process that we want to go through when we come up with projects. And from my perspective, if we are not challenging the underlying mindset, and in this case, as you were mentioning, we're still in a perpetual growth paradigm, and that you can see that not only from an economic perspective, but that of course has an impact on other related fields. And for instance, with themes such as the ones we are aiming to tackle through 4refs, which are definitely themes that have structural factors, and that are not just a matter of producing food in a different way, or just having like minor adjustments here and there, but somehow really imply challenging the underlying system that somehow is keeping them the way they are functioning on a mainstream level. I do think that we definitely need to challenge ourselves to begin with, and to challenge the way we are dealing with this whole heritage, and this whole mindset that we've been dealing with recently. Because if we don't manage to really challenge those core concepts, such as growth, such as what's the scalability of the projects we are trying to put together, and if we don't do that sort of deconstruction process first and during the way, in the end we're gonna end up coming with solutions that perhaps their potential impact will be radically diminished by the same sense of conception and the same way of seeing the problems we're trying to tackle. So I do feel that this is an essential part of coming up with projects, and it has to do with really challenging, to begin with, our understanding of the issues we're dealing with, and of the core concepts underlying those issues. Otherwise, we're gonna carry on reproducing the same ways in one way or another, and maybe they're gonna be dressed in green, and maybe they're gonna have a different outfit and the flashy look that Javier was mentioning that perhaps this grassroots movement doesn't have, but they're going to be lacking of a real, challenging approach to some of these core challenges that we have. So I would just like to add on that, and invite the people that are not only thinking about applying to 4ref's challenge, but that are on an entrepreneurial sort of process to really keep that in mind. And as Noemi was saying, surviving, it's already quite a success. And as one, I think Javier was mentioning, also failure could be a success. This is not just a cliche in many cases, and I can talk also from my personal experience. I think that the kind of things that I'm relatively able to do right now, they are definitely building on the several failures I've had before, and failures that sometimes they are not that easy to accept and to see them in a positive way when they are taking place. But retrospectively, some time later, you can definitely acknowledge the importance they might have for the things that you are trying to do. And just by trying based on that experience, I think there's a very important aspect that we don't need to underestimate. Okay, Lina and Edith, you can let us know if we have more questions coming from the people attending. Meanwhile, I would like to ask you, Noemi and Javier, we were talking and you were mentioning the Al Gore's documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, came out in 2006, if I'm not wrong. It's been more than almost 15 years now. And we started our conversation highlighting this sense of urgency. And somehow for some of us, it is already quite late, and perhaps things are not moving in kind of with the speed that they should be moving. I would like to ask you about the entrepreneurial based initiatives and their relevance, because if we go to systems thinking, that's something that we've been mentioning today. There's an author that talks about the levels of intervention. So of course, if you can manage to have a change in policy making that has some impact, if you can manage to have a change in people's mindset and a paradigm shift, which is of course way more difficult to achieve, but that can have also a very specific sort of impact. I would like to ask you about the role of these kind of entrepreneurial based initiatives, and thinking about the transformations or revolutions that platforms such as 4Refs are looking for. Why do you think that the entrepreneurial based initiatives are relevant? And how do you think that this level of intervention relates to other ones, such as the government-based initiatives, policymaking, or kind of more conventional private sector initiatives? And I know that, Javier, for instance, you have the chance of, you're still a public sector person, and you've been moving in both sectors. What are, your takes on it?
I really believe that we need to think beyond sectors. That in 2100, if there's any chance that the survival probability, as 4Refs is framing it, becomes higher, it's because we stopped thinking in sectors altogether. Nature has no sectors. We should look at how the biosphere has responded to systemic challenges in 4 billion years of evolution of life on Earth and try to learn from it. Nature did not categorize into separate shoe boxes. So that being said, I believe there's place for entrepreneurs in the public sector, in the private sector, in the social sector, in academia. There's always a chance to begin by putting a problem on the table, responding to it with a value proposition, and then experimenting to build a model that delivers this value to the world. And so what I would say is, look, exactly what the entrepreneurial way of being will invite to do is to learn. It's not to be taken lightly. So instead of doing something that happens very often in the governmental organization sphere, but even in the private sector too, which is assuming that we already have the answer to a problem and saying we already know. It is indeed the case that a lot we know, and it's a pity that we are not doing a lot of what we already know we need to do. But actually what we have is a lot of open questions on how to translate ideas into practice. And what I would say about this level of intervention is entrepreneurs, we must learn and adapt. So test, and generate evidence as the result of your testing, and adapt as the result of that testing. And that's what this level of intervention really puts on the table, the capability to, as Noemi was saying, agile in an agile way, not get fixed on a very big plan and a very big idea, but try it out, identify your critical hypotheses, and find the way of testing them. Find many ways of testing them, and then evolve depending on what comes up.
That's, I think testing is what is very hard to do when you're in the center, as in you're in a large institutional organization, because of the way they are built. There's inherent constraints in or large organizations, public-private, to fund, for example, things like the 4Refs Innovation Challenge. And the reasons are many. You have the private that's looking a lot at the return on investment. The public, I've worked a lot in the public sector or with the public sector, and for them, the problem of supporting individuals, like citizens, with money or resources is just very difficult, because there's all this paperwork attached. There's the bureaucracy that's a big black box that makes it hard to process resources directly from an institution to an entrepreneur. So then you need the third space. You need the civil society space that kind of supports these initiatives. And of course, historically, entrepreneurship was always, people have been entrepreneurs for ages. It's how we've come here, where good ideas come from. If you read the book, there's a lot of answers there as well. So they will always be there. The matter is, I think, how we can support them. And through programs like these, I find that it's much easier to go to the lower level, low risk, high return kind of approach, where you can afford to support people with pockets of money or connections and go to where they are instead of having them line up for a big public tender or something. If that makes sense, Lucas. I don't know exactly what you were looking for with the question.
It makes sense. I think I was not looking for something in particular, just opening the questions. Thanks, Noemi. I would like to briefly build on what you were mentioning, Javier, about this kind of non-segmented approach. Stop thinking about categories or sectors and really kind of having a more, I don't know if that word would be cohesive or integrated approach. How far are we from that, and to what extent? For instance, I'm aware that in the Colombian, both public and entrepreneurial sectors, again talking in sectors, you've been working in both of them. How far do you think we are from having that more integrated approach and really being able to conceive processes in a different way? Is that just wishful thinking, or you think it's actually starting to take place somehow?
Oh man, we're so far. We're closer than before, but we're so far. Look, I am a relentless optimist. I think there are very good reasons for optimism. But the way our situation has evolved, especially in the last 5 years, has put my optimism to test. Because there are very good reasons to understand that we need to act in a way that has always been true. I tend to think about, I don't know, like people in 1963 thinking about like a nuclear winter and the possibility of nuclear annihilation of the planet, and working very hard with urgency to try to divert nuclear catastrophe, which is still pretty much a risk today. But when I think about this, look, maybe it's not new that we need to act. It's always in the present that we are living. So there's like this, maybe call it like some sort of like spiritual background, or like a sort of like perception background, which is, look, it's about focusing on the present and understanding how we can learn from the past and build scenarios from the future, standing on our present moment. But in direct response to your question, I think we're extremely far from a truly integrated socio-economic system. In fact, what we are witnessing is a strengthening of the divisions between sectors. I think it's like in many cases. And then on the other hand, a weakening. It's like you see this complexity happening all over the place, but I wouldn't diagnose something like saying, oh, it's like barriers between sectors are being broken and there's more integration and more integration. No, I am seeing a lot of complexity, but a lot of insistence in that the models that we've inherited since the Industrial Revolution, with premises that are like causally explaining the emergencies that we are living today, they're being withheld. And you just need to look at the centers of power of traditional power in the world to realize how that's working.
One of the main prices or incentives of the 4Fs challenge, apart from financial incentive, which could be definitely useful for early stage projects, is to be able to showcase their processes and their projects with the 4Fs community, with the 4Fs ecosystem. And in this case, apart from all the sustainability practitioners that are part of this network, we have the companies. So far, Japanese companies, 2021 onwards, we're going to be adding organizations from other places of the world. And I would like to ask you, you both have quite an experience working with other stakeholders, such as companies or public sector organizations. What have you learned from these processes that may nourish the initiatives that are interested in applying to the 4Refs Innovation Challenge? And why do you think is relevant precisely to have these sort of spaces to showcase your ideas with potential allies, such as the companies that are now part of 4Refs?
It's a more complicated story that we can relay here, but obviously, for any entrepreneur, information is very important, especially in the early stages. So the more people you get to talk to, the more forums you attend, the more networks you are part of, the better, because it opens up different windows of opportunities, and it will kind of direct your business into places where you don't see from the beginning. So just talk to as many people, and often these events and these connections are bridged by where resources are. So organizations sponsoring, or organizations that are linking private companies with entrepreneurs, like in the case of Nelis. And this is very valuable. If someone's there to make that connection for you, then you take it for sure. With Bean Life, with my company this year, we were very lucky that we got public funding the minute that we incorporated as a business legally. And that's because my partner was already experienced in circular economy, and he knew what funding is available in Flanders, and he made it possible that we financed some of our work in R&D this year just because of public funding, even though we're a private company, really. But it takes knowledge, and it takes the people that can tell you about these opportunities, because, as I said, the public systems are very opaque. And it's not for everyone, but it's really important if you have the skills to spend time in networking, or, talking to the city or your local representatives, even though it might be not so relevant for your market, or for your product.
What about you, Javier? Any element from your experience that you think would shed some light on this articulation process?
No, I would say that just taking very seriously the vision of winning something like this innovation challenge, and being open to the feedback that you will experience in the process is already very valuable. I've been recently working as an evaluator in several open calls for innovation. And part of what I've seen is that you can very quickly understand how much time and effort is behind different proposals because of the way they're crafted. So I would invite people thinking about sending their proposal to the Innovation Challenge to think about their proposal as a piece of craftsmanship. It's like you are building this for people that haven't known you or your idea yet, and you want it to be felt. You want to receive the best feedback possible out of what you're sending, more than simply winning the challenge. And it's very likely that even if you do not get to the next stage or do not win, just the process of putting down in writing the moment in time of your evolution brings a lot of value to your process, and you can start pitching it to many other people, to many others, just an occasion of being a part of this process. I deeply resonate with Noemi's advice of looking for eyes and ears everywhere, and looking for the knowledge about where those eyes and ears are and how to get to them. It's also a cliche, but many times this social capital ends up mattering a lot more than the financial capital that then is born out of it.
Yes.
But yeah, understand this challenge as an opportunity to connect with more people that might then connect you with even more people. And it's through these connections that the purpose will finally be realized, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Before we wrap it up, I would like to invite all the participants, both those who are connected right now and those who will be watching this webinar later on, to check out once again, the link to our 4Refs Innovation Challenge. To apply, we have till the 19th of November. To connect to the 4Refs and Nelly's network, you can check the Nelly's website as well. We're having new membership options right now, and there's a lot of opportunities starting to materialize in new ways, and that could be very interesting and strategic for many people, regardless of the place in the world where you're at, the kind of topics you're working on. I would also like you to check, if you want to get to know more about what both Noemi and Javier are doing, to check the Edge Riders, the Bean Live website. You can check they both did during, I don't remember if it was during the lockdown or maybe before that, to micro trainings. Each of them made one micro training. Next Leaders University, NLU, which is another Nelly's initiative. You can find their teasers in the NLU website, which is nluglobal.com. And you can what they did. In Noemi's case, she was talking about how she facilitates digital collaboration between professional experts and skilled citizens. In Javier's case, he talked about building a world without trash through local experimentations. And I'm pretty sure that you can, elaborate on some of the themes that we touched today through these micro trainings. And finally, I would like to ask you, Javier and Noemi, first of all, to thank you again for your presence here, and to ask you if you have something else to add to the people that right now might be thinking if they should apply or not, if they have, the right idea or solution or not. If there's any final thought you feel like sharing with them, please go ahead.
Of course they should apply. What do you stand to lose? I mean, it's maximum a couple of hours of work, but your idea is probably there. You've probably pitched it somewhere else, or you will pitch it afterwards. So it's not that you won't be using the material even if you don't win. So there's really only to gain, I think. I mean, speaking as a fellow entrepreneur, even more so than an Nelly's member in this case. It's what we do.
Yes. Luca, I think we should understand ourselves as being part of a movement, a very diverse movement, but it's a movement that is looking to respond to challenges that unite us across borders and across that diversity. And I would invite you to apply just to keep us inspired. There's a lot that needs to be said in terms of what support looks like, simply by sharing what you are doing and your ideas with the rest of the world. So bet on it, even if what it means is just for the sake of showcasing, of demonstrating what your vision is about, what you've already achieved, and opening yourself up for feedback, which is, again, it's a very valuable learning experience. So I would like to end up on that note, and let's keep the movement moving.
Yes, let's keep it moving. And please, once again, check the platform. If you have any further questions, you will find in the platform a channel. This is not the only space, the webinar. I mean, you're going to have an open channel till the 19th. If you have questions, and the Social Lab and Nelly's team will be ready to guide you through to answer any questions. And once again, thank you very much for your presence, online presence. Thank you very much, Javier and Noemi, for sharing with us your time, your experience.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Hope it helped.
Thank you for the invitation.
It is helping already. And we'll be in touch. This whole 4Refs challenge, again, is just one of the initiatives gravitating around 4Refs and Nelly's. And I'm pretty sure there will be many more to come. Thank you, Lina, Edith, Daniela, everybody on the Social Lab and Nelly's team. And till the next one. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.